Creative Babble.
Well, hello, dear Ponzi Playbook listeners. We are back.
That's right.
I know it's been a very long time, and we've missed you. Javier and I have stayed close in touch. However, he was working on a massive project on his podcast, Pretend, which has had, as of this recording, over 1 million downloads and was... plastered over massive digital billboards in New York. It was so stinking cool. No big deal. Just an average day in Javier's world.
Yeah.
But we're back.
Yeah, Neil, that was pretty cool. But you too have been busy, right? You've been writing a book about a Ponzi schemer, and that was totally worth taking a break over, right?
It was lots of work, and we will dive more into that later this season. Let me tell you something. It is a tale that would span, 20 episodes of the Ponzi Playbook. I'm Neil McTighe.
I'm Javier Leyva.
And this is the Ponzi Playbook.
Trust isn't earned, it's demanded. And whether you're a startup founder navigating your first audit or a seasoned security professional scaling your GRC program, providing your commitment to security has never been more critical or more complex. That's where Vanta comes in. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks, like SOC 2 and ISO 27001. It streamlines security workflows, speeds up questionnaires by 5 times, and proactively manage vendor risk. Vanta not only saves you time, it can also save you money. A new IDC white paper found that Vanta customers achieved $535,000 per year in benefits, and the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. Join over 9,000 global companies like Cora and Factory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. For a limited time, our audience gets $1,000 off Vanta at Vanta, that's Vanta, Vanta.com/Ponzi for $1,000 off.
So we've got a good one for you. This begins with my favorite, an FBI raid. Javier, here's how it goes. We're in Chevy Chase, Maryland in 2017, middle of the year, when FBI agents raid this woman's penthouse. Her name's Dawn Bennett. And when they go in there to raid Dawn Bennett's penthouse to find the things that they're looking for, right? They discovered hundreds, maybe even thousands of designer shoes. But what they also discovered were 2 big freezers packed, jam-packed with dozens of sealed mason jars, and each contained what appered to be a cow tongue.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures right now.
Disgusting.
I'm talking about mason jar after mason jar with beef tongues, Neil.
Yes. And I don't think she was planning to cook with these beef tongues. This isn't like, in Europe where it's a delicacy.
Or have you ever had lengua tacos?
I don't know. Should we? Should we go get them?
Yeah, you should. You know what? It sounds disgusting, but it's actually quite tasty.
Okay.
This woman, Dawn Bennett, was not planning on making beef tacos.
Lengua tacos.
Lengua tacos.
And if she were, she was planning on making a lot of it because she had so many jars. It was packed, 2 freezers full.
Oh,
So can you tell our lovely listeners, what the heck did the FBI agents think once they had found those cow tongues?
Yeah, I bet this was the last thing that these FBI agents expected when they raided this house. It's almost like they busted in on Jeffrey Dahmer's house or something, where they open up the freezer and they see all these mason jars with beef tongues, but to make matters even more confusing, each jar had an initial on them. So each jar had a different initial. It was like dozens and maybe, I don't know, hundreds of initials on them. And some of those jars had the initials of the SEC attorneys investigating Dawn Bennett's case.
Disgusting. So the attorneys, it turns out, had become targets of what was called a beef tongue shut up hoodoo spell. And that's actually what she called it, and the FBI agents found, because there was this personal stationery that they found during the raid. And on it, there was this, title, Beef Tongue Shut Up Hoodoo Spell. But then it also included a spell that had to be sung, an incantation, that would be sung while the tongue was being split open. Javier,
you're not making this up.
Can you read the incantation?
So the spell, and I hope we don't, affect anybody, while I'm reading this, I hope this doesn't upset the spirits, but the spell is, quote, "I cross and cover you. Come under my command. I command you to hold your tongue," unquote.
Oh, gosh. You didn't split open a cow tongue, right? While you were saying that?
I really, I try not to. But you know what's funny, Neil? Long-time pretend listeners may have heard my series on Santeria, which is a very famous Afro-Cuban religion that's practiced in Cuba, is practiced in Miami. And part of the religion is sacrificing animals and doing exactly this, like these voodoo spells. And, my mom always said that if you encounter, because this is very typical, I could be walking down the neighborhood of Miami and encounter a bag with a goat's head. And that could be bad voodoo. And so my mom always said, if you encounter this stuff, just pee on it. Okay. And then you neutralize the voodoo curse.
So did you ever do that?
No.
Fortunately, you never just found a goat head in a bag. Okay.
No, and actually, now that we're going way off course here, but now I'm remembering another thing. My mom, she's very superstitious, and whenever, and very protective of me, so if somebody crosses me, she'll write their name on a piece of paper and put it in a Ziploc full of water and freeze them. And if you freeze them, they will no longer bother you. So...
Oh my gosh!
But she doesn't have tongues in her freezer. Scheme? Yeah. No. Oh yeah. This is the Ponzi playbook. What the hell are we doing talking about tongues?
I mean, people must wonder what the heck,
Yeah. Well, let's get to the
here's
Ponzi
what it
scheme.
is. She was promising guaranteed returns, 15%. I mean, she was a Ponzi schemer.
What was she investing in? What was she promising them?
It was really in her own company, her own.
So they would invest
luxury boutique.
In her own company.
Yeah. So it wasn't she was it wasn't like typical investment advisors who, take money and say that they are going to invest that in some other entity. She was the owner of the very entity, and they were investing in her, really, in her business. So this is interesting because she was fully transparent about the fact that it was her business and they were becoming investors in it.
And her business, what did it entail? Beauty stuff? What was it?
Yeah, it was luxury sports apparel. So for an example, she would sell $13,000 golf bags, really, really high-end apparel. But yeah. And she needed a lot of money.
But just like any Ponzi schemer, she was promising these big returns and then paying her for her luxury vacations, her cosmetic treatments, and her ritual Hindu priests in India to keep investigators at bay.
That's what she was trying to do. She was trying to ward these folks off. She was trying to shut up the SEC with those beef tongues. She was practicing these mystic spells to protect herself from the evil that was coming after her. But the truth is, no spell could save her, and we're going to see her demise later. Why don't we get into the the details of the scheme because it's pretty fascinating and it's slightly unique in terms of the Ponzi playbook. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, and we started off the show with talking about Dawn Bennett and the beef tongues and kind of poking fun at that. But I understand that a lot of people do believe in the spiritual world, and I want to be respectful of that. And I also want to point out that Dawn Bennett was a legitimate, professional in the brokerage world. In fact, she worked at one firm from 1987 to 2015. But when that firm discovered that she was offering and issuing notes on the side to her clients without their approval, they forced her to resign. And I'm talking about this wasn't just a little bit of side cash.
Yeah.
This was $6.4 million of notes to 31 individuals in 2015, all of whom were clients of that brokerage firm.
Yeah, she formed Bennett Group Financial Services, LLC, back in 2009. And it was through this firm that she engaged that brokerage. She had engaged them prior, but it was through this company starting in 2009. And she was the 100% owner of Bennett Group Financial Services. And then in 2010, she formed another LLC, which was called DJB Holdings. So Dawn J. Bennett Holdings. Again, she was the 100% owner. And uniquely, this company launched a brick and mortar luxury sports apparel business. And it was based in Washington, D.C. And she also had 2 subsidiaries for that company, one in Shanghai, one in Singapore.
So this is the company that eventually these investors were pouring their money into,
They were
right?
pouring the money into, yes. So she, she's working as an advisor at this brokerage firm. She then starts in 2009, 2010, these separate companies that she wholly owns. She then starts needing cash. So then she goes to who? The brokerage clients, and she solicits them and she starts selling these promissory notes to them. And then she's using that money. They're investing, right? They're not directly getting an equity investment, but they are signing over money in terms of a note and getting a return.
A pretty sizable one.
Yeah, pretty 15%. I mean, no joke, right? That's annual. Way better than the stock market.
That's usually a red flag, right?
That's usually a red flag. I think we've seen that. We have seen some of these conservative Ponzi schemers, right? With the 8%.
That's the way to go.
That is the way to go. They last a lot longer.
So, in addition to her brick and mortar store, she also started djbennett.com, which is the same sportswear site, but under DJB Holdings. And with the fallout of that brokerage firm in 2015, Bennett struggled to maintain that lifestyle that she got used to. And like you said, Neil, she was bleeding cash. In 2014, DJ Bennett reported $800,000 in annual revenue, but incurred expenses of roughly $1.8 million, with $2.6 million in outstanding liabilities.
Yes.
And between 2014 and 2017, she raised more than $20 million from over 40 investors. Most of them were retirees, and she was offering them 15% annual returns.
So in one example, in December of 2015, Bennett made a representation to an investor that her company was making $1.1 million in net profit, but she had actually lost nearly $5 million in 2015. In that same year, she overstated gross profits by a massive 3,382%. She was just flat out lying to investors about how djbennett.com and the brick and mortar location were crushing it, when in fact she was losing so much money. In one email, she wrote, "Even without our private brand out in the marketplace, our revenue will be close to approximately $9 to $10 million worldwide."
Yeah, why wouldn't anybody want to invest in this? I mean, it sounds like she's blowing up, right?
Without even her private brand, right? They're going to do maybe 10 mil.
Yeah, but in reality, the annual revenue dropped to about $400,000 by December of 2016, while liabilities ballooned to a staggering $15.6 million. And what's a great way out of this?
A Ponzi scheme.
That's right.
That's right. We have seen numerous instances where Ponzi schemes begin by accident or a fall, right? And then the ego gets in the way, and the ego thinks, oh no, I can figure this out. I've figured everything else out. And this is a case of that, but then it gets ugly and ruthless because she perpetuates it, right? And she's deliberately spending the money on herself. So it's not like she's saying, oh, let me conserve. She's saying, nah, I want to benefit from this. So
I mean, if you're going to start a Ponzi scheme, you might as well live the lifestyle, right?
You might as well go out with beef tongues in the fridge.
And talking about that lifestyle, she had to pay for the Ritz-Carlton in South Beach, a very expensive hotel stays with over $100,000 in cosmetic treatments and $141,000 in astrological gems. Those things don't grow on trees.
No, they don't. And I don't think we're talking about 5 or 6 really rare jewels here. We're talking about gems. She also spent over $800,000 on Hindu priests. She hired those Hindu priests to perform rituals to ward off investigators. And she wrote to the owner of this website called puja.net, where she found the Hindu priests. She wrote to that owner, I am in a very, very tough fight going against my enemies. And yeah, I mean, one of these, what were called yagya rituals, she spent $7,250 for 5 priests to pray for her across 29 consecutive days. Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good use of money. I mean, 29 days for $7,250, 5 people. Wow.
It sounds like the only people that won from this Ponzi scheme are the Hindu priests.
The Hindu priests.
Yeah. But let me ask you a question. Was she Hindu? No? Like not to your knowledge, or are you pretty confident about that?
I am only assuming based upon her name and her appearance.
She doesn't
I don't know.
Hindu.
But then there's the whole beef tongue hoodoo stuff.
Yeah, like that doesn't, the beef tongue thing doesn't sound like a Hindu thing.
Where's that from culturally?
Tongue, Hindu. I'm just like, maybe we're missing something here, because priests, like, where would she get the idea of beef tongues?
Well, what is hoodoo? It originated in the United States with enslaved African Americans.
Yeah, so the sliced cow thing comes from Santeria. So the sliced cow tongue was most likely offered by someone who wanted to silence an enemy or someone who's gossiping. They would offer the tongue to the orichas, which are the spirits. So it seems to me she is drawing spiritual techniques to silence those investors, or to stop those investors, by using, borrowing a little Santeria here and then a little Hindu priest there. So it doesn't sound like, I don't know this woman, but it doesn't sound like she has some sort of ideological or spiritual ideology that she's following.
Yeah, because they're coming from 2 different origins, right? That's a great point. And then, let alone the astrological gems, there could be a whole other background there. She's kind of like a mystic.
She's covering her bases.
She's like, who's winning here, right?
One of these things is something has got to work.
Bennett was really good at lying, including lying to get loans from actual, formal institutions. And in one case, she secured $750,000, and she made the claim to get that loan that she had $4.25 million in assets. However, in the accounts at that time, she only had a combined $250. No joke. So she went out there with this bold-faced lie of millions and millions. And what happens? She defaults. And then the lenders start trying to come after her. She's not responding. And then when she gets back to DC, she claims that she had been in China. But that was later proven to be wrong, because credit card activity showed that she was just hanging out in DC that whole time and spending money.
Yeah, but she needed these loans because she had to pay for all these legal bills that she had across the various law firms that were covering the expenses to unrelated DJ Bennett's core business. And also she had to pay for that Dallas Cowboys luxury suite at the AT&T Stadium. And guess how much she paid for that luxury suite?
I mean,
the Dallas Cowboys.
I would say a suite per game is probably like 5 or 10K.
You would think, and that sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot to me. But no, she paid almost $1.5 million for this suite.
I would want half of the stadium at that
or
point.
I would want ownership into the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean, good grief.
It's crazy.
I guess you're sitting next to Jerry Jones. I don't know.
Yeah, that better come with a buffet.
It better. Yeah. With with lingua tacos would be the way to go. More about lingua tacos after the break.
We should have a fake ad for Taco Bell. Introducing lingua tacos. Taco Bell.
It'll keep the SEC attorneys at bay.
Security and compliance don't just build trust, they demand it. If you're a startup founder tackling your first audit or a security pro scaling your GRC program, you know how overwhelming compliance can be. That's where Vanta comes in. Vanta helps businesses automate compliance across 35 plus networks like SOC 2 and ISO 27001. So you can skip the busy work and focus on what really matters. It centralizes security workflows, speeds up questionnaires by 5 times, and helps you stay ahead of vendor risk. And it's not just a time saver, it's a money saver too. A new IDC white paper found that Vanta customers achieve $535,000 per year in benefits, and the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. More than 9,000 companies, including Atlassian, Cora, Factory, trust Vanta to manage risk and improve security in real time. Want to try it for less? For a limited time, you can get $1,000 off at vanta.com/Ponzi. That's VANTA.com/Ponzi for your exclusive discount.
Average is not invited. Not if you're holding your company off-site in Las Vegas. We aren't on friendly terms with the bare minimum, and unenthusiastic is uninvited. Las Vegas's creative energy and world-class hospitality want to bring your company off-site to crazy new heights. That's why fear-based leadership is afraid of Vegas, and boring won't be there, but it will be watching the meeting recordings later. Plan for the extraordinary at vegasmeansbusiness.com.
All right, here we go. So we're back, Neil. We're back. And now we're going to talk about the downfall, because that's what happens when you start a Ponzi scheme.
One of the worst things that could happen to someone running a Ponzi scheme is unannounced regulators showing up for an on-site exam. That happened to Dawn Bennett's firm on November 6, 2016. As part of that exam, she was asked to provide information. This was the FINRA regulators who oversee investment advisors. A mere 10 days after they came by for that on-site exam, Dawn goes home and starts altering promissory notes to make them look like short-term loans, not securities, even though she had been selling them as securities. And then she even backdated some of those notes to make them look legitimate. She added this very important line to them, which read, "This is not an offering or investment." So she was now committing fraud to FINRA, and that didn't end so well, because what happens?
Well, the SEC got involved, and they filed a complaint on August 25th, 2017, citing violations of the Securities Act of 1933 and 1934. And soon after that, the DOJ and the FBI got involved. They filed an indictment against her, and she was arrested.
Yeah, and she was hanging out in Santa Fe, New Mexico at that point. So, she had left the DC metro area. She was now in Santa Fe. And she's ordered by the court, though, that she's not to have contact with any of the victims. And if she were to do that, it would be a violation of the court order. So instead, what does she do?
Instead of going home, she turns around and goes the opposite direction, and she's missing for 2.5 hours. She buys a burner phone and makes 133 separate calls to individuals on the no contact list.
Good grief. So she is immediately in violation of the court order. And it's amazing, right? 133, that's a lot of work. So she was quite busy. So now she's in violation of the court order. One of the individuals that she called told the court what she said.
Yeah, she says that this was a witch hunt.
So as the witch was being hunted, Bennett and her company's chief financial officer, we haven't mentioned him yet. His name is Bradley Masco. But they conspired to convert these promissory notes into other instruments in an effort to disguise the fraud. Ultimately, during this investigation and then the arrest and indictment, they also go after Masco. He decides that he's going to cooperate and tells everything. There's an accomplice in all of this. He's not as deep in it as Dawn. However, he had a pecuniary interest. He was making money. And now he didn't want to spend time in jail. So he said, I'm going to turn on Dawn. And at this point, she's now thrown in the slammer because she had committed a violation of the court order. And she's not able to access any cow tongues to shut Bradley up. So he's talking.
Yeah. And Neil, I can't help but notice, are you holding a voodoo doll in your
Bradley's head is missing.
Oh, my goodness. All right.
It's my little globby.
Yeah.
I use it because it helps me take the tension out.
Because these recording sessions are so stressful.
I had this on a team meeting, and they're like, "Is this stressful?" And I'm like, "Yeah, pretty much everything in my life is stressful."
So now we're at the trial, right? And this is happening in October 2018, and of course, you have to talk about the cow tongue in the jars. I mean, you can't, how do you avoid that? That's so weird, right? And the government is saying, hey, this is proof. This is proof. These initials, that she's trying to cast a spell on the investigators. This is proof that she knew that she was doing something wrong.
Yes.
But the defense says, oh, no. All those beef tongues were just rituals that were attempts to save her business. That's all they were.
Yeah, I mean, that's right out of Harvard Business Review's playbook of executive strategy. No question about it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but unfortunately, the jury disagreed, and they found her guilty on 17 counts, including wire fraud, bank fraud, and securities fraud.
Ouch. And what happened to her?
So Bennett is now serving a 20-year sentence in Danbury, Connecticut, and must pay a restitution of $14.5 million. And does she have $14.5 million, Neil?
No, but she was claiming that she would do everything in her power to repay those investors during sentencing.
She eventually appealed and was denied, and she's expected to be released July of 2033. I
have a feeling that Dawn no longer puts any faith in that ritual because it seemed to really backfire.
Yeah,
but right. Maybe she's practicing something else in Danbury. Bradley Masco, her CFO accomplice, entered a plea deal, served 30 months in federal prison, and was required to pay $4.8 million roughly in restitution. He's already out. I'm sure he's not paid that money. Maybe he has. I highly doubt it. But both are forever barred from serving as brokers or investment advisors. And that's where we're at.
And yeah, I mean, it was we're making light of the beef tongues and all, or the cow tongues and all that stuff. But, this is a real case.
This is serious stuff.
People lost a lot of money, their life savings.
Retirees, people with cancer. I mean, really sad stories. People in their 80s who are
people making loans against their life insurance policies to invest in this company.
These weren't sophisticated investors. These weren't high net worth investors. These were just everyday average people who worked hard all their life. So it's sad.
And one of the victims in court said, quote, "You're just evil. Just looking at you, I feel like I'm looking at Satan." Unquote.
Ouch. Yeah. I mean, that just goes to show how dark her deception was. And it doesn't help that she also has this very dark, almost satanic appearance, right? With very heavy dark black makeup, dark black hair. She would always dress in dark black attire. Of course, it was fancy Italian designers and that. So Dawn played into this sort of witch, evil, satanic look, but she was not all evil. She was quite contrite at sentencing, and she started to show remorse.
Hey, I want to interject though, because you described her like almost as gothic, but at the same time, it was very high end, gothic look like Chanel and God knows how many other luxury brands. We did focus a lot on the beef tongues, but her closet was packed with high end. I mean, it looked like she robbed a Saks Fifth Avenue or something, right?
Yeah. I mean, she could have, right. In fact, I wonder, those shoes, could that make restitution? There were so many in there.
Yeah, probably so.
I don't know what the depreciation is on them, but I'm sure it's not that bad.
Coming full circle here, in the trial, of course, they got the representative from puja.net where she got the Hindu priests, remember she hired these Hindu priests to pray for multiple days so that they could ward off any of these investigators. And Benjamin Collins with puja.net said, quote, "We don't necessarily pray with a guaranteed outcome," unquote.
Oh, Javier, that line is just too good, because one of the things that we know with all these Ponzi schemers is they always promise guaranteed returns. This guy, he's admitting they can't guarantee it, and certainly it failed in this case. But one thing is for sure, that by listening to the Ponzi playbook, you are guaranteed returns.
What did we learn today, Neil?
I did learn something today, Javier. Whatever you do, it's never a good time to start a Ponzi.